everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. This precious human life, rarely encountered, is easily lost. Now that I have life and opportunity, may I practice the Dharma wholeheartedly.
Mahayana refuge. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way.
Invocation of the lineage. I give thanks for the guidance of my teachers.
For the lineage of teachers before them, I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened, may their vows be completely realized, and may I cultivate these perfections with their guidance.
7 practices of the Bodhisattva. I bow down in body, speech, and mind.
I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings.
Generating love and compassion. May all sentient beings be free from clinging and hatred, being
close to some and distant from others. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from clinging and hatred. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness and the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from suffering and the causes of suffering. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from clinging, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this.
Please stand for the Sutra.
Lankavatara clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form, sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are essentially empty, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no seeing, and so on, to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, path, no wisdom, and no attainment, since there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva lives by Prajnaparamita, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, and therefore no fear, far beyond elusive thinking. Right here is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by Prajnaparamita, attaining Anuttara Samya Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore set forth the Prajnaparamita mantra, set forth this mantra, and proclaim Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva. In the realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. All that is in yourselves come forth
Please prepare for Zazen.
We, the Daishin Rokuji Sangha, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude for the teachers of this lineage, our connection to one another, covenant to support each other by upholding the precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others.
Please be seated facing the teacher.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. Please arrange yourself in a way that we can see each other and your company. So, some different currents needing an expression in today's talk. Interesting. Well, to begin, we had a establishing the Buddhist practice class today. And it's one of 3 sessions. We do this once a year. And we had some near 50, something like that is the number, rough cut. Which is really just amazing, isn't it? Can you imagine there being 50 people interested in this craziness? There is hope still for the humans, right? And, no matter what calamities or foolishness is prevailing, still the heart of wisdom beats. And every generation anew takes up this experience, this human living, this human dying, this human dying. What does it mean? What is the truth of this human life? What is the truth of this human death that we all will practice, or like it or not? You have a date. It will be kept. Except you don't know when it's going to happen. We can look at the world and see literally it's burning and flooding and chaos everywhere, challenges, political, geopolitical traumas. And yet still, in the midst of all of this, still that beating heart of wisdom is circulating. It's calm. That still small feeling inside that aches to connect to something deep and true, reliable. Not some scam you run on yourself. Not some supplicating to someone else to give you all the answers and hope they're right. No, dear one, that won't do. Not really. Instead, we have to actualize and realize and manifest reality. We have to understand experientially what this human life and death really is. Sorry. That's part of it, I guess. So a number of us gathered, and it's interesting. It's always unique, and yet there are themes. Why do this? I mean, this is a perfectly serviceable Sunday morning. You could be sleeping or having an omelet or whatever. Why here? Why do this thing? And I've got to say that one of the main points here is not that you need to come here to hear a Dharma talk. This talk itself will eventually be podcast and out there. You can access it any time. There's a downside to that. It's a good thing. It's a good side. Make it accessible. It's all good. But the downside is you can fool yourself into thinking that just listening to a podcast or reading a book or having Buddhist thinking moments is the answer, and it is not. You see, one has to be in the same space where the Dharma is living and breathing. And one must come into contact with that living, beating heart of wisdom. And it takes some gumption, frankly, a lot. Frankly. It takes a lot of steel in the spine, a lot of weight in the hara, a lot of clarity of purpose. And this is hard won. Most people don't just fall out of bed with that. There are barriers, there are obstacles, there are cultural givens that collide with your own intuition. Which one wins the day? There are expectations that are laden upon you by your teachers and your priests or rabbis or imams, your family, your schools. Let's just give the benefit of the doubt and say well-intended, though they're not always. But even if well-intended, their answers cannot reach it. They have to be your answers. And it's not about just accepting a Buddhist check sheet of beliefs and saying, I agree. I won't do it either. You know, that guitar is not going to play itself. That bench press will not press itself. The Tai Chi form will not execute itself. You have to do the thing. And not alone. Do the thing in communion with the stream of living intelligence of the Dharma. Starting with our original founding teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, acknowledging the uncalculable Buddhas before in times and spaces unknown, through the lineage of ancestors down to the current day, living, breathing embodiments of the same heart of wisdom that beats in us all, but now realized, now manifested, now there for you to interface with, frankly. I remember very early, teachers said to me that their job was to make their practice something that I could interface with. It's a very interesting way of putting it, isn't it? And then there's arguably the most important point, and that's community. See, it's not just a little private thing between you and the guru, so to speak. No, it can really get funny there, quickly. Also, community, human feel, human connection. And I suppose many of us have the same intuition around this, some may not, but maybe it's just me not being the youngest generation on the planet anymore. But I have real concerns about what's happening with all this technology and the AI, and particularly the young kids. Did you know that there are baby carriages now that have a spot for the iPad and stereo speakers for the infant? That's like a thing, man. What is that going to do to the neurological development of our species? You know, we're going to find out. Knowingly or not, we're signed on to this pretty intense experiment. I remain hopeful. I remain encouraged, but I also remain skeptical and concerned. Perhaps you do as well. But I tell you what, if there are a generation of infants being raised with this experience, sooner or later, that same heart of wisdom beats within them, and it will seek to be experienced and expressed and realized, regardless of the conditions of their carriage. Who will they turn to? They will be confounded, I predict, to find that the answer is not in their device. They will have to find friends. They will have to find living, breathing Homo sapiens to actually connect with. And you know what? This Sangha will be here. Yes, it will. There will be a living, vibrant hub of actual Homo sapiens practicing and realizing the Dharma. Inheritors of this 2,600-year-old stream of wisdom, but now palpably alive in this place and in this time and under these conditions. You know, as an organism is exposed to a different environment and the environmental pressures change, then the organism adapts or ceases to be. And this continues on in the process we know as evolution. Same, let us say, genome or DNA structure, and yet conditions make things shift. And we all, dear ones, are not exempt from that. And this 2,600-year-old institution, human society that we're a part of, Sangha, also has environmental conditions and pressures that make it show up and express differently over time. That's exactly what's happening right now, not just here. But I tell you what, our ability to meet the unknown well depends on our ability to meet this moment well. If you can meet this moment precisely, whether it's grief or jubilation or apathy or any of the colors in the palette, meet it impeccably. Don't, no mask, no little dance. Actually just honest, authentic, true experience. This is the stuff of practice. And for most of us, even getting in touch with what's authentically going on is not an easy thing to do. The one fish came to the other. "You elder fish, I have a query for you." "Yes," said the elder fish. "I hear there's this thing called water. I don't believe it. What is it?" And the elder fish, "Well, you came from the water, and to the water you'll return." "Oh, cut out with the poetry. What is it?" "You're in it right now." Would you answer the question? No, really. It's in you, it's out you, it's everywhere, it's between us right now. All the fish that have ever been have been expressions of the same water that you and I now express. No matter how much the elder fish tries to explain to the younger fish, it's not going to be able to understand sufficiently. Even if it's a smart fish and it can spit the words back. Water, yeah, me. Doesn't help. What has to happen is that little fish has to be guided into an experiential contact with water. This is not abstract. This is not some esoteric wispy thing out there in woo-woo. This is a factual thing here, like this. So over time, the elder fish devised means and methods to help the younger fish realize the ocean. You see. And suddenly the school of fish realizes everything is just right, and they can go about their fishy lives. Now, as it turns out, fish have no problem, as far as we can tell, living their fish life just fishy fine. Trees tree right along. Clouds go clouding about. But you. Somehow it becomes a little more complicated. You see, just because a person has gray hairs does not make them wise. The Buddha said this in the Dhammapada. Let us say that the old fish never actually gets a taste, as far as they can tell, of water, and they grow old convinced that it's not true. So, again, this business of how do you find who you can trust? How do you find real ways to actually do this thing? You know, you're not just kidding yourself. No, it's not wishful thinking. No, it's not cosplay event. What is it? What's it about? The Lankavatara chapter on stages of the Bodhisattva life. The sutra says, the 8th stage is the stage of no recession, meaning not returning. To those for whom this is new, the sutra is talking about stages of development and progress along the spiritual path. At this place, Up to this stage, because of defilements upon the face of universal mind caused by the accumulation of habit energy since beginningless time, the mind system and all that pertains to it has been evolved and sustained. Let's look at it. Defilements placed on the face of universal mind. Be careful. Do not hear echoes of original sin or anything like this. It's simply mistaken perception, okay? Simple misapprehension. And because of this, since beginningless time, chronic misapprehension, it leaves an imprint. Universal mind. Now that's a term that you can run with, you know. But it simply means, in simple terms, suchness. Buddha nature, right? True nature is universal mind. Simply put, clear light, non-conceptual, luminous, self-aware, blissful, empty Buddha nature, universal wisdom mind of the Tathagatas of suchness. There. Language, right? An interesting component of this sutra is it has many, many different names for that same universal mind, that same Buddha nature, that same ground of being. And the name that the sutra uses, that the Buddha speaks, depends on the suffering of the listener. For some, they need to hear about the bliss. For some, they need to hear about the thusness. It just depends where you're stuck. But all these words fade once that fish finally realizes it's always been in water. The bird has always been in the sky and in the air. And you, dear one, have always been and will always be, no matter what happens, expressing the same Buddha nature. But we fail to recognize that in a durable way, because since beginningless time, meaning you have no subjective sense of having started. Like, it's not like you're like a video game, like, okay, now I'm here with a controller and we'll push play and now we start the game. You don't have that. You can't remember a time before you were you. It's beginningless to you. Of course, everyone was born on a certain day and time. But in your experience, it's been beginningless. So since this beginningless time, the mind system of the Lankavatara is, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, manas, and alaya. That whole system of perception has been evolved and sustained by what? By this accumulation of habit energy, basically conditioning. And this conditioning is what keeps the little fish from realizing water. Even though they're in it, of it, and will return to it fully. So this mind system has to do with the eye, and the ear, and the nose, these sense objects, you see. All the way to the intellect, the thinking mind, the sort of sense of yourself as a self, the ego, you could say. The sense of yourself being a witness to everything that's going on. And then the storehouse consciousness, as the tradition has it. This mind system has functioned by the discriminations of an external and objective world to which it has become attached and by which it has been perpetuated. Now here's the thing to tune into here. It's talking about the structure, like how the cocoon is wrapped, okay? If you're gonna break out of the cocoon, you wanna know how it's been built. If you want to do a prison break, you need the plans. You need to know where the structures are, where the weaknesses are, and how you can get out, okay? So the Buddha is saying very clearly here that this mind system structure of, let's say, let's pick ear, right? Sounds. Your ear wants to hear sounds, and it wants to hear whatever it thinks of as pleasing sounds, and it wants to avoid whatever it considers to be unpleasing sounds. And it pretty much ignores the neutral ones. And the eye is doing the same, the nose is doing the same, smells good, smells bad. And these things are all functioning in these overlapping systems. And somehow, with all these sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue is taste, body, sensations of the body. As you sit there now, you perhaps feel how you're contacting the zendo floor and gravity. Perhaps you feel the air on your face. Perhaps your tummy is rumbling because you ate something that doesn't quite agree with you last night. All of these things end up, oh, and then also mind, thoughts. Your mind consumes thoughts the way your eye consumes sights. It lusts after and holds fast to thinking. And we've seen before that appearance arises. Appearance to the eye is a visual. Appearance to the nose is an olfactory. Appearance to the ear is a sound. You get it. But that appearance happens, and then name occurs. Smells good. Smells bad. Ah, that's a cat. That's a deer. That's an owl. We start categorizing. We start discriminating. Of necessity. I mean, how else are you going to figure out what to have for lunch? It's fine. But it's partial. And this mind system, including thoughts, and this is where you have to be very careful. Establishing a Buddhist practice is not just replacing other thoughts with Buddhist-y thoughts, and now you're a Buddhist. That's another trap. Not going to do it. Near enemy, but still not acceptable. And so this discrimination occurs then. Appearance arises in your experience. Name, in other words, cognizing, recognizing it, perceiving it. I perceive it. Say, I like it. I, it, like. There's a lot packed in there, and language locks it in there. Say. And with that appearance of experience and name or cognizing, labeling, discrimination comes. And that's the prison. But not only that, interestingly, this is the first time in my recollection of teaching the sutra that it makes this point. The mind system functioned by discriminations of an external and objective world to which it becomes attached and by which it is perpetuated. It's a two-way street here. The mind system attaches to the pleasing and repulses from the displeasing, but also those sent experiences create the mind system. They're mutually interdependent and co-arising. Mutually interdependent, co-arising. The eye, the object of sight, and the eye consciousness create each other. The Buddha said, "Ah, you builder of the house, I see you, and you will build this house no more." Maybe today I'd say, "Ah, you builder of this prison, I see what you're doing, and we're done with this. No more." It's interesting, right? It's not just me learning to control or work with my desires and repulsions. It's also understanding that those things are working on you. But with the Bodhisattva's advancement to the 8th stage, there comes a turning about within the deepest consciousness from self-centered egoism to universal compassion and love for all beings. Why do we have such trouble loving ourselves and loving each other? Because we're trapped in this prison of the mind system with karmic habit energy. Buddha is very clear. Really, if there's conflict and disharmony and war and vitriol and anger and all this, these are not happy people. Okay? I have great compassion and feeling and love for them because they're trapped. The natural human state is love. Let us say, compassion. And yet we miss it because this prison is self-perpetuating and self-generating. And that's why it's so critical and so important that you learn how to and give yourself the gift of being able to sit down and be still and let go. Whether you're a young man building your skills and trying to find how to make your mark, or you're an old grandma letting go of control, or wherever we happen to be where you are and also know how to completely become Buddha nature. Let the wave take counsel and succor in the fact that it is the ocean. The wave being able to merge with the ocean even as it maintains its waveness. This is a wave at peace. This is a wave that can be immensely powerful with no exertion whatsoever. This turning about in the innermost consciousness is when you unpull, you pull out these pegs that hold this prison together. There's only one way to do that. You've got to sit still. You've got to learn to trust your body and trust yourself and trust the stillness and develop such powerful awareness. And you can. You can. But you're not just going to, fall out of bed with it. You might fall out of bed and have a sudden enlightenment experience. But that won't stick if you're not actually practicing. So as important as it is to have some sense of this turning about and that it's there, don't go chasing it. Instead, simply do exactly what your practice is right now and crush it. Really do that. Seriously, do that. If you're counting that breath, man, whole universe counts the breath. Just do that and trust. The whole thing is contained right there. Realize it or not right now, that's the case. There's 2,600 years worth of loving, compassionate Buddhas who've spent their lives transmitting this practice for you, for me, for us. And I submit to you that we need to take this up for those infants who are now in these little strollers with eye things and plugged in. It's not just about you. It's okay for it to start there. But ultimately, it's about all of us. The compassion and love of the Buddha is not bound by culture or race or class or education or anything. But how do we get that from being a pleasant idea to being our gut reality? We need this turning about, this awakening. There comes a turning about within the deepest consciousness from self-centered ego to universal compassion for all beings as your go-to default setting. Click it on, that's what it is. By which they attain perfect realization of noble wisdom. Finally, there is an instant cessation of the delusive activities of the whole mind system. And this is the case. There's an instantaneous and total cessation of that self-referential, mutually interdependent, co-arising prison. It simply stops. The mind doesn't stop. You're still there, you still have, perceptions and what all. But the delusive functioning ceases. There is an instant cessation of the delusive activities of the entire mind system. If that doesn't sound compelling, it's simply because you don't quite understand what it is yet. We'll get there. The dancing of the waves of karmic habit energy on the face of true reality, of clear light bliss, universal Buddha, Tathagata mind of awesomeness. Those waves of habit energy are forever stilled, revealing the inherent qualities of quietness, of solitude, of universal compassion for all beings, in the inconceivable oneness of the womb of Tathagatahood. Shall we? I hope so. Not just for you, not just for each other, but for those kiddos who are on the way, and their descendants, descendants, descendants. In gratitude to the ancestors who came before, and for the benefit of all those successors yet to come, may it be so.
to
Thank you all for coming to service today.